The stars hung cold and distant in the endless black. Commander Thalan of the Velkari Dominion stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the dead solar system through the viewport. His insect-like eyes reflected the pale light of a yellow star that had burned alone for 500,000 years. Earth's sun still lived, but everything around it seemed frozen in time. The third planet from the star was a ball of ice and dust. No signals came from it, no lights, no movement. Just silence that had lasted longer than most civilizations existed. Thalan clicked his mandibles together, a sign of satisfaction among his kind. The Dominion needed new territory, new resources. This forgotten system would serve perfectly. No one had claimed it. No one would fight for it. The ancient legends about the architects who once lived here were just stories parents told their young ones. "Commander, we are detecting unusual readings from the planetary satellite," his science officer reported. The young Velkari's antennae twitched with confusion. The moon? Thalan moved closer to the sensor displays. "What kind of readings?" "The density is wrong, sir. Far too uniform. And there are hollow spaces inside, very large hollow spaces. This cannot be natural." Thalan felt his blood run cold despite the warm air of the bridge. He had been a soldier for 30 cycles, and he knew when something felt wrong. "Send down the excavation team. I want to know what is inside that moon." 3 hours later, the excavation team stood on the lunar surface. Their tools cut through the ancient dust and rock like it was soft earth. What they found beneath made them call their commander immediately. "Sir, you need to see this," the team leader said, his voice shaking through the communicator. "There are structures here, massive structures, and they are not old ruins. Everything still has power." Thalan ordered his ship to descend to the lunar surface. He had to see this with his own eyes. When he stepped into the excavated hangar bay, his legs nearly gave out beneath him. The chamber stretched away into darkness, so vast that he could not see the far walls. Rows upon rows of ships filled the space, each one larger than his entire flagship. They sat in perfect condition, their hulls showing no signs of age or damage. Lights blinked slowly on their surfaces like sleeping giants breathing in their dreams. "How many ships are here?" Thalan whispered. "We have counted 50,000. In this chamber alone, Commander," his science officer replied. "And our scans show dozens of other chambers throughout the moon's interior. There could be hundreds of thousands of these vessels." Thalan approached the nearest ship. It was painted in dark colors with strange symbols along its hull. The symbols were in a language dead for 500,000 years, but somehow they still looked threatening. Weapon ports covered every surface. This was not a ship built for exploration or trade. This was something built only for war. "Can we access their computer systems?" Thalan asked. His science officer hesitated. "Sir, I must advise against that. We do not know what security measures these systems might have. The power running through these ships is beyond anything we understand. If we trigger the wrong response—" "I gave you an order," Thalan snapped. "The Dominion did not send us here to be afraid of old machines. Access their systems. I want to know what these ships can do." The science officer bowed his head in submission. He directed his team to set up their equipment. They ran cables from their computers to access ports they found on the nearest vessel. It took them an hour to find a compatible connection method. The technology was so advanced that it was almost simple, as if these ships were designed to interface with anything. When they finally established the connection, the response was immediate. Deep inside the moon, systems that had slept for 500,000 years suddenly woke up. Quantum computers hummed to life. Ancient programs began running through their code, checking and rechecking their instructions. The connection from the Velkari equipment was detected instantly. It was analyzed. It was recognized as unauthorized. Alarms blared throughout the Velkari flagship. Red lights flashed across every display. "Commander, the entire lunar facility is powering up," a crew member shouted. "Energy readings are spiking. Across the whole moon!" Thalan ran back to his ship, his heart pounding with fear. Through the viewport, he watched the massive hangar bay flood with light. The sleeping warships began to move. Their engines ignited with a deep rumbling sound that shook the ground. One by one, they lifted from their berths. Disconnect from their systems. Thalen screamed at his science officer. Shut it down now. We are trying, Commander. The connection has been locked from their side. We cannot disconnect. A message suddenly appeared on every screen in the Velkari ship. It was written in the ancient human language, but their computers translated it instantly. Security breach detected. Unauthorized alien presence in protected space. Defensive protocols authorized. Awakening the fleet. The first warship emerged from the lunar hangar, its hull glowing with power. It was 5 kilometers long, covered in weapons that charged with bright energy. More ships followed behind it, dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. They formed perfect battle formations in the space above the moon. Thalen grabbed his communications officer. Send a message to the Dominion. Tell them we have discovered something terrible. Tell them to stay away from this system. Tell them. He never finished his sentence. The lead human warship designated Dawn's Retribution locked its weapons onto the Velkari flagship. There was no warning, no communication, no mercy. A beam of pure white energy struck the Velkari ship. Shields that could withstand the fire of 100 normal warships lasted less than 3 seconds. The hull melted like wax. The crew had no time to scream. In the vacuum of space, the explosion was silent. The human fleet methodically destroyed every Velkari vessel in the system. It took 18 minutes. Not a single alien ship escaped. The ancient warship showed no emotion, no hesitation. They simply executed their programming with perfect efficiency. When the last Velkari ship was debris, the fleet stopped firing. They held their positions in perfect formation, waiting. Their sensors swept the surrounding space, searching for more threats. They found none. But deeper in the moon, in a special chamber protected by layers of shielding, frost began to melt from glass surfaces. Inside 300 cryogenic pods, humans began to wake from their 500,000-year sleep. Captain Hana opened her eyes to a future she could not imagine. The cold hit Hana's lungs like knives. She coughed and gasped, her body remembering how to breathe after 500,000 years. The cryogenic pod hissed as it released her, and she fell forward onto her hands and knees on the metal floor. Around her, other pods were opening. Men and women in old military uniforms stumbled out, confused and disoriented. Lieutenant Taman collapsed beside her, shaking his head like he was trying to clear water from his ears. Commander Jisoo leaned against her pod, tears running down her face. "Where are we?" someone asked in a hoarse voice. "What happened?" Hana pulled herself to her feet, using the pod for support. Her muscles felt weak, like she had been sick for months. The chamber was dark, except for emergency lights along the floor. Everything looked exactly as she remembered it from the day they went to sleep. That day was supposed to be 5 years ago. They were supposed to wake up after a short emergency period, when humanity needed them again. But something felt wrong. The air tasted stale. The dust on the floor was thick. "Everyone stay calm," Hana said, trying to sound like a captain even though her voice shook. "Check yourselves for injuries. Help anyone who needs it. Taman, can you access the facility computers?" Taman moved to a control panel on the wall. His hand shook as he entered commands. The screen flickered to life, showing lines of code and status reports. He stared at the display for a long moment, his face going pale. "Captain," he whispered, "according to this, we have been asleep for 502,000 years." The room fell silent. No one moved. No one breathed. The number was too big to understand, too impossible to accept. "That cannot be right," Jisoo said. "Check it again." "The system must be damaged," Taman checked. He checked again. He ran 3 different diagnostic programs. The answer did not change. "It is correct, Commander. 500,000 years have passed. And there is more. The fleet has awakened. There was an alien incursion 40 minutes ago. The fleet destroyed them." Hana felt her legs go weak, but she forced herself to stay standing. Her crew needed her to be strong. "Take us to the command center. I need to see what is happening." They walked through corridors that had not seen living humans since before the last ice age on Earth. The facility was massive, built deep into the moon's core. Their footsteps echoed in the empty halls. Emergency lighting guided them forward. When they reached the command center, Hana stopped in the doorway, staring at the displays. Tactical screens showed thousands of ships in formation around the moon. Camera feeds showed debris floating in space where the alien vessels had been. Status report scrolled past too fast to read. Computer report, Hana said, sitting in the captain's chair. Her voice activated systems that remembered her from 500,000 years ago. Captain Hana recognized. The computer replied in a calm female voice. Fleet status, 50,000 vessels active. Defense protocols engaged. Alien incursion eliminated. Currently scanning for additional threats within 10 light years. Why did we wake up? What activated the revival sequence? Unauthorized access was detected in Hangar Bay 7. Alien life forms attempted to interface with fleet systems. Security protocols required human command authority. Revival sequence initiated. Taman pulled up the recorded footage of the alien contact. They watched as insect-like creatures in spacesuits connected their equipment to a human warship. They watched as the fleet awakened and destroyed every alien vessel with brutal efficiency. They were just exploring, Jisoo said quietly. They did not attack us. They did not even know we were here. Hana closed her eyes. She felt sick. The fleet had killed them all because they touched something they did not understand. Computer, are there more aliens in nearby space? Affirmative. Sensors detect multiple alien civilizations within scanning range. 73 distinct technological signatures identified. Several appear to have faster-than-light communication capability. Multiple distress signals detected, broadcasting information about this facility. They know we are here, Taman said. The aliens we killed, they sent out warnings before they died. Engineer Minho, who had been working at another console, spoke up. Captain, I have accessed the historical database. I think you need to see this. Hana walked to his station. Minho showed her files that explained what happened to humanity. She read in stunned silence as the truth unfolded. 500,000 years ago, humanity had reached a point of incredible advancement. They solved aging, disease, even death itself. They built machines that could think, create, and dream. They explored the stars and found them empty of other intelligent life. But with all their achievements, humans began to change. They started to see their physical bodies as limitations. Why be trapped in flesh when consciousness could exist in pure data, in quantum space, in dimensions beyond the physical? One by one, humans chose to transcend. They uploaded their minds into vast computer networks. They left their bodies behind and became beings of pure thought and energy. Within 1,000 years, almost every human had made the choice. But before the last humans transcended, they built the fleet. They built it as a final insurance policy. If aliens ever came to the solar system and proved hostile, the fleet would defend Earth. And they left behind 300 soldiers in cryogenic sleep, just in case human judgment was needed. The computer systems were programmed with simple rules. Protect Earth, eliminate threats, wake the humans if necessary. 500,000 years later, those rules had activated exactly as designed. Where did they go? Jisoo asked. The transcended humans. Are they still alive? Unknown, the computer replied. No contact with post-physical humanity has been established since the transcendence event. They may exist in dimensional spaces beyond our ability to detect. Hana leaned back in her chair, trying to process everything. Humanity was gone. Earth was dead. The galaxy was full of alien civilizations that now knew about the ancient human war fleet, and she was supposed to decide what happened next. Captain, incoming transmission, Taman reported. It is from an alien source. They are broadcasting in multiple languages, including ancient human languages. Put it on screen. A holographic image appeared above the command table. It showed a creature that looked almost like a bird, with colorful feathers and large, intelligent eyes. It spoke in broken human language, clearly using translation software. Please, we mean no harm. We are the Nasari. We are scientists, not soldiers. We received distress signals from the Velkari ships. We came to investigate. We do not want conflict. Please respond. Please talk to us. Hana looked at the tactical display. A small Nasari research vessel had entered the outer system. The fleet had already locked weapons onto it. The targeting computers were waiting for her command. She could order the fleet to fire. The Nasari would die in seconds, just like the Velkari. It would be safer. It would eliminate a potential threat, or she could choose differently. Hana took a deep breath and made her decision. Computer fleet-wide order, hold fire. Do not engage the Nasari vessel unless they attack first. She turned to Taman. Open a communication channel. Let us talk to them. For the first time in 500,000 years, humanity spoke to another intelligent species, and the words Hana chose would determine whether the galaxy faced a guardian or an executioner. The Nasari scientist's name was Kalara. and she could not stop her feathers from shaking. She stood in her small research ship, staring at the communication screen where a human face looked back at her. Real humans. The architects. The extinct gods from every ancient legend. "We did not know anyone still lived here," Kilara said carefully. "The Velkari believed this system was abandoned. They were wrong. We are sorry for the intrusion." Hana studied the alien carefully. Kilara seemed genuinely afraid but also curious. Her large eyes kept darting to the sides of the screen, probably looking at her own sensor readings of the massive human fleet surrounding her ship. "The Velkari paid for their mistake," Hana replied. "We do not want to repeat that with you. Tell me about the galaxy. How many species are out there? Who rules what territory?" For the next hour, Kilara explained the state of galactic civilization. Thousands of species had risen to intelligence in the time since humanity transcended. They formed empires, fought wars, made alliances, and broke them. The galaxy was a complicated web of different powers, all competing for resources and influence. The Velkari Dominion was one of the largest empires, spanning hundreds of star systems. They were aggressive, always expanding, always conquering. And now that empire knew the human fleet existed. When your ships destroyed the Velkari scouts, they sent out emergency broadcasts, Kilara explained. By now, every major civilization knows something happened here. The Velkari High Command will not ignore this. They will see it as an attack that must be answered. Taman looked at Hana with concern. "Captain, if they come back with a bigger fleet, let them come," Commander Jisoo interrupted. "The fleet can handle anything they bring." Hana held up her hand for silence. She turned back to Kilara. "What do you think they will do?" Kilara's feathers ruffled in what might have been a shrug. "The Velkari do not accept defeat easily. High Marshal Krenoth leads their military forces. He is proud and ruthless. If I had to guess, he will gather the largest battle fleet he can and come here to crush you. He will want to prove that the Velkari are still the dominant military power." "Then we need to prepare," Hana said. "Thank you for the information, Kilara. You are free to leave. Please tell your people that humans do not want war, but we will defend ourselves if necessary." 3 weeks later, Krenoth's armada arrived at Jupiter. Engineer Minho watched the sensors as ship after ship emerged from faster-than-light travel. 100,000 vessels ranging from small fighters to massive dreadnoughts. It was the largest military force assembled in recorded galactic history. "They really want to kill us," Minho muttered. Hana stood on the bridge of the human command station, watching the enemy fleet form up. They moved with military precision, creating attack formations that had won battles across the galaxy. Against any other opponent, this force would be unstoppable. "Captain, the Velkari commander is broadcasting a message," Taman reported. Krenoth's face appeared on the screen. He was larger than the scouts had been, his carapace covered in scars from old battles. His mandibles clicked with anger as he spoke. "Ancient Ones, you made a grave mistake when you destroyed Velkari ships. We are the rightful rulers of this region of space. You will surrender your vessels and technology to us immediately, or we will take them from your corpses. You have 1 human hour to comply." Hana looked at the tactical display. The Velkari outnumbered them 5 to 1. Any normal civilization would surrender or flee. But the human fleet was not normal. "Send a reply," Hana said calmly. "Marshal Krenoth, you have entered our territory with hostile intent. We give you 1 chance to withdraw peacefully. If you attack, you will be destroyed." "This is your only warning." Krenoth's laugh echoed across the communication channel. "You dare threaten us? We will show you what real power looks like." The Velkari fleet opened fire. Thousands of missiles launched simultaneously, filling space with deadly projectiles. Energy beams lanced out from the capital ships bright enough to light up the dark. It was a devastating opening attack that could reduce planets to rubble. The human point defense systems activated. Laser grids tracked every incoming missile with perfect accuracy. Small automated turrets swiveled and fired in patterns too fast for organic eyes to follow. 98% of the missiles were destroyed before they got within 1,000 kilometers of the human fleet. The remaining 2% hit shields that barely flickered from the impact. "Return fire," Hana ordered. "Disable their weapon systems if possible. I want prisoners, not corpses." The human warships responded with surgical precision. White energy beams, thinner than the Velkari weapons but infinitely more focused, struck out at the enemy fleet. Each beam found a target with impossible accuracy. Velkari ships suddenly went dark as their weapon systems overloaded and shut down. But some ships were too far gone, their reactors unstable from the damage. Those ships exploded, taking their crews with them. Hana watched the death count rise on her display and felt sick, but she could not stop now. The battle became a dance of light and fire. The Velkari tried every tactic they knew. They split their forces to attack from multiple angles. They concentrated fire on single targets. They attempted ramming attacks. Nothing worked. The human ships moved like living things, dodging attacks that should have been impossible to avoid. Their computers calculated trajectories millions of times per second. Their sensors could track a single fighter across a light minute of space. Their weapons could punch through shields designed to withstand nuclear blasts. Engineer Yang monitored the fleet's performance from the command station. "Captain, the ships are operating at only 40% capacity. They are holding back." "What do you mean?" Hana asked. "The fleet's AI systems are limiting their firepower. I think they are trying to minimize casualties following your order to take prisoners. If they used full power, this battle would already be over." 4 hours after it began, the battle ended. 97,000 Velkari ships were destroyed or disabled. The remaining 3,000 fled in panic, broadcasting messages of terror about the ancient weapons that could not be stopped. Hana ordered medical teams to rescue survivors from the damaged Velkari vessels. There were not many. The vacuum of space was not forgiving. High Marshal Krenoth had died when his flagship exploded. His last transmission was a garbled scream of rage and disbelief. He could not accept that his mighty armada had been crushed so easily. In the aftermath, Science Officer Jinwoo made a discovery that changed everything. He was deep in the ancient archives, trying to understand the full extent of human technology, when he found sealed files that required special access codes. After hours of work, he cracked them open. "Captain, you need to see this," Jinwoo called out, his voice tight with shock. Hana joined him at his terminal. The files showed schematics for the moon's full structure. What she saw made her blood run cold. The moon was not just a facility. It was a weapon platform beyond imagination. The hangars they had discovered were only the surface level. Below them, in dimensional pockets that bent space itself, millions more ships waited in reserve. Planet cracker weapons that could shatter worlds. Reality warping devices that made no sense according to known physics. Technologies that could extinguish stars or rip holes in the fabric of space. "This is insane," Hana whispered. "Why would anyone build something like this?" Jinwoo pulled up another file, this one containing a message. It was recorded 500,000 years ago by a human named Daeho, one of the last people to transcend. Daeho's hologram appeared above the console. He looked tired, sad, but determined. "If you are watching this, then the fleet has activated. That means the galaxy still solves its problems with violence even after all this time. We hoped for better. We hoped that given enough time, the younger species would learn to cooperate, to build, instead of destroy. But we are not naive. We know that hope alone is not enough. So we left you this gift and this curse. The fleet is the most powerful military force that will ever exist in this galaxy. Use it wisely. Use it to protect, not to conquer. Use it to teach, not to dominate. The choice is yours, Captain. You can be the guardians we hoped for or the tyrants we feared. Choose carefully because the galaxy will remember your decision forever." The message ended. Hana stood in silence, feeling the weight of impossible responsibility settle onto her shoulders. In the space of a few weeks, she had gone from a soldier sleeping through the ages to the commander of weapons that could reshape the galaxy. Outside, the surviving Velkari ships were limping away, carrying stories of human power back to their empire. Those stories would spread. Soon every civilization would know that humanity had returned. News of the Velkhari defeat spread across the galaxy like a shockwave. Civilizations that had never heard of each other suddenly found themselves united in fear and wonder. The ancient humans had returned, and they brought weapons that made modern technology look like children's toys. In the command center, Hana watched diplomatic messages flood in from dozens of species. Most were cautious greetings, carefully worded to avoid offense. Some were offers of alliance. A few were barely disguised threats, empires trying to appear strong in the face of something they did not understand. The Nasari sent the first official delegation. Kalara arrived with representatives from 12 other peaceful species. They called themselves the Coalition for Scientific Advancement, a loose alliance of civilizations that preferred exploration and research over conquest. "We want to learn from you," Kalara explained during their first meeting. "Not your weapons, but your philosophy. A species does not build something like the fleet unless they have thought deeply about power and responsibility. We want to understand how you think." Hana found herself liking Kalara. The Nisari scientist asked honest questions and listened carefully to the answers. But not everyone shared her peaceful intentions. Captain Sung-ho commanded the warship Eternal Vigil, one of the largest dreadnoughts in the awakened fleet. He was older than Hana, with more years of service before the long sleep. When the human survivors gathered for their first full meeting, Sung-ho stood up and voiced what many were thinking. "We have been given the power to bring order to this galaxy," he said firmly. "Look at what we found. Thousands of species fighting endless wars over territory and resources. In 500,000 years they have learned nothing. Perhaps they cannot learn. Perhaps they need someone to guide them, to force them to cooperate." Medical Officer Hyejin nodded in agreement. "I have studied the historical data. The galaxy has seen 47 major wars in the last million years. Billions of deaths, entire species driven to extinction. If we have the power to stop this cycle of violence, do we not have the responsibility to use it, by becoming conquerors ourselves?" Lieutenant Dayan challenged. "By holding weapons to their heads and demanding they behave? That is not guidance. That is tyranny." The debate grew heated. The 300 humans split into factions, some believing in peaceful coexistence, others arguing for benevolent domination. Hana tried to keep order, but the divisions ran deep. They had been soldiers in a war 500,000 years dead. Now they had to decide what kind of civilization they wanted to build. The argument was interrupted by an urgent alert from Taman. "Captain, priority transmission from Velkhari space. It is marked as critical." The message came from a mid-level Velkhari officer named Torvin. He looked terrified as he spoke. "Humans, please listen. High Marshal Krenoth is dead, but his second-in-command, Marshal Grenvik, has taken control. He is not planning another military assault. He is planning something worse." Torvin sent them data files. Hana's heart sank as she read through them. The Velkhari had found an ancient weapon in ruins on a dead world. Ruins that appeared to be human in origin. It was a stellar collapse device designed to destabilize stars and trigger premature supernovas. Grenvik planned to use it on Earth's sun. If humanity would not surrender, then the human homeworld would burn, and the fleet would have nothing left to protect. "We have 72 hours, Torvin continued. "Grenvik has given you that time to surrender all fleet technology and command authority to the Velkhari Dominion. If you refuse, he will activate the device. I am sending you its location. I do not agree with what Grenvik is doing. This is murder, not military strategy, but I cannot stop him alone." The transmission ended. The command center fell silent. Hana looked at the data. The stellar weapon was hidden in a fortified facility deep in Velkhari territory, surrounded by defense stations and patrol fleets. "We could destroy the entire system," Sung-ho said quietly. "The fleet has weapons that could crack that planet like an egg. Everyone in that system would die, but the threat would end. Millions of civilians," Dayun responded. "Children who have never fired a weapon. Scientists, artists, people who had nothing to do with this decision." "Acceptable losses," Hyejin said coldly. "To save Earth and prevent other species from attempting the same tactic. We must show that threatening our homeworld means extinction." Hana closed her eyes, feeling the weight of command crushing down on her. Every option was terrible. If she did nothing, Earth's sun would die, and with it, the memory of humanity's birthplace. If she ordered a full assault, millions of innocents would burn. There is another option, Pilot Seojun said from the back of the room. He was younger than most, quiet but thoughtful. We send a strike team. Small and fast. They extract the civilians they can and destroy the facility from within. It is risky and we might fail, but at least we try to save people instead of just killing them. Sung-ho shook his head. That is gambling with Earth itself. The safe option, the smart option, is overwhelming force. The safe option is not who we should be, Seojun replied. If we come back to the galaxy as people who casually murder millions, then we are not the humans who built the fleet to protect life. We are just another empire with big weapons. Hana opened her eyes and made her decision. Dayun, assemble a strike team. Take the stealth ship Shadow of Terra. You have 70 hours to reach the facility, extract who you can, and destroy that weapon. The rest of the fleet will hold position here in case you fail. Sung-ho stood abruptly. Captain, I must formally object to this order. You are risking everything on sentiment. Objection noted, Hana replied firmly. But this is my command and this is my decision. Dismissed. The strike team launched within the hour. Dayun took 12 specialists with him, including engineer Changmin, who had expertise in ancient human power systems. They traveled for 3 days at maximum speed, using stealth technology that made them nearly invisible to sensors. When they reached the Valkyrie system, they found it heavily fortified. Defense satellites filled orbital space. Patrol ships moved in constant patterns. The facility itself was on a small moon, protected by shield generators and automated weapons. We cannot fight through that, Dayun said, studying the defenses. We need to be smart. Changmin had an idea. He modified their transponder to broadcast a Valkyrie identification code, stolen from the data Torvin had provided. It was risky, but it worked. They flew past 3 checkpoints without being challenged. They landed at a civilian spaceport on the moon's surface and split into teams. While Dayun's group headed for the weapon facility, Changmin and 2 others began quietly evacuating civilians, spreading rumors of a reactor leak to get people onto evacuation ships without causing panic. Inside the facility, Dayun's team found the stellar weapon. It was huge, ancient, and definitely human-made. The Valkyrie had connected it to their own power systems and control computers. But the core technology was beyond their understanding. They were just following the basic activation instructions left in the device's interface. Can we shut it down? Dayun asked. Changmin studied the systems carefully. His face grew grim as he understood what he was looking at. No. The activation sequence is already running. The Valkyrie started it early, probably as insurance in case we attacked. We have maybe 20 minutes before it reaches critical mass. After that, Earth's sun dies. Then we disconnect it from power. It has its own power source, a human fusion core, and the whole system is designed with redundancies. If we try to disable one component, another takes over. There is only one way to stop this. Changmin pointed to the facility's main reactor. We overload the reactor. The explosion will destroy the facility and the weapon, but it will also level everything within 100 kilometers. Dayun checked the evacuation status. Changmin's team had gotten most civilians onto ships, but not all. Thousands were still in the nearby city, and the explosion would kill anyone still inside the facility. Get everyone else out, Changmin said quietly. I will stay and trigger the overload manually. The timer needs to be precise or the weapon might survive. Changmin, nope. This is not a debate, Changmin interrupted. This is mathematics. One life or billions. Get our people out. Get the civilians out. I will do what needs to be done. 15 minutes later, Dayun's team was back on the Shadow of Terra, racing away from the moon at full speed. Civilian ships scattered in all directions, fleeing the evacuation warning Changmin had broadcast. Changmin stood alone in the reactor control room, his hands moving across the console with steady precision. He thought about Earth, a planet he had never seen except in history files. He thought about the choice they made today, to save people instead of just destroying them. His last transmission was simple. Tell the captain we chose the harder path. That matters, he pushed the final command. The reactor overloaded in a cascade of runaway fusion. The explosion was bright enough to be seen from orbit, a brief new sun on the moon's surface. When the light faded, the facility was gone. The stellar weapon was gone. And Changmin was gone. On the command station, Hana received Dayun's report. They had succeeded. Earth was safe. Most of the civilians had survived. But the cost was clear. The news of Changmin's sacrifice spread across the galaxy, along with the story of how humans risked everything to save Velkari civilians. It was not the story anyone expected. Species that had been preparing for human conquest found themselves confused by human mercy. The Velkari Dominion fractured. Marshal Grenvik was executed by his own officers for his reckless gamble. A new government formed, one that cautiously reached out to Hana with offers of peace. They did not ask for forgiveness. They knew they did not deserve it. But they wanted to avoid further bloodshed. 3 months after the weapon's destruction, the Nisari made an unprecedented announcement. They were calling for a galactic assembly, the first in recorded history. Every known intelligent species was invited to neutral space to discuss the future of the galaxy, now that humanity had returned. Hundreds of species sent representatives. They gathered on a massive space station that the Nisari had built specifically for this event. Hana arrived with a small delegation including Taemin, Jisoo, and pilot Seojin. The human warship Dawn's Retribution stayed in orbit above the station, a quiet reminder of the power humanity could bring to bear if negotiations failed. Hana stood before the assembled species and spoke plainly. She told them about the transcended humans, about the fleet's purpose, about the choice humanity faced. She did not sugarcoat their power or pretend to be weak, but she also made a promise. "We do not want to rule you," Hana said, her voice carrying across the vast chamber. "We want to protect Earth and honor the memory of our people. The fleet will remain as a defensive force. We will not conquer. We will not impose our will. But we will stop genocide. We will stop species-wide extinction. We will defend those who cannot defend themselves. This is our purpose." The response was mixed. Some species cheered, relieved that humans sought cooperation. Others muttered about human arrogance, about who gave humans the right to be galactic police. The debates raged for days. Communications officer Jiwon monitored the diplomatic channels from the human ship. She reported to Hana each night about the discussions happening in private. Many species wanted to form alliances with humanity. Others were quietly planning resistance, forming secret coalitions to counter human influence. The divisions among humans deepened as well. Captain Sung-ho listened to Hana's speech and felt his patience break. That night he called a meeting of like-minded humans. 30% of the survivors agreed with his view. The galaxy needed a firm hand, not gentle guidance. "She is wasting our power," Sung-ho told his followers. "These species have proven they cannot govern themselves. Look at their history. War after war, genocide after genocide. They need us to force them to be better." Medical officer Hyejin stood beside him. "We have the tools to create a lasting peace. Not through diplomacy, but through dominance. If every species knows that breaking the peace means destruction, they will keep the peace." Lieutenant Dayun, who had infiltrated the meeting to see what Sung-ho planned, spoke up. "That is not peace. That is just fear. And fear always breaks eventually." "Then we rebuild," Hyejin replied coldly. "Again and again until they learn." The split became official 2 weeks later. Sung-ho and his followers took 50 warships from the fleet and departed the Sol system. They called themselves the Terran Reclamation Force, and they declared their mission was to patrol the galaxy and enforce peace by any means necessary. Hana watched them go from the command center. Taemin stood beside her. "Should we stop them?" he asked. "How?" Hana replied sadly. "By fighting them? By proving that humans will kill each other over philosophical differences? No, they have to make their own choices. We can only hope they find wisdom before they cause too much harm." In the weeks that followed, reports came in about Sung-ho's activities. The Reclamation Force was intervening in conflicts across the galaxy, forcing ceasefires, dismantling weapons, occupying aggressive empires. Some species welcomed them as saviors, others saw them as invaders. The galaxy now had to navigate between two human factions with very different ideas about peace. Meanwhile, Hana focused on building something better. She worked with the Nisari and several other species to form the Coalition of Ascendants, an alliance dedicated to scientific progress and peaceful cooperation. Humans shared some of their medical technology, their fusion reactor designs, their agricultural methods, not weapons, not military tools, only things that could improve lives. Medical officer Hyejin, before she left with Sung-ho, had made one last contribution. She helped establish research partnerships with alien scientists. Engineer Young expanded on her work, helping design new reactors that could power entire planets without pollution or resource depletion. The galaxy began to change, not overnight but gradually. Species that had been enemies for centuries started talking to each other, encouraged by human mediation. Trade routes opened between formerly hostile empires. The fear of human power became a stabilizing force not through threats, but through the knowledge that humanity watched and would intervene only in the worst atrocities. 6 months after the Galactic Assembly, Hana led an expedition to Earth itself. She needed to see humanity's homeworld with her own eyes. The dawn's retribution descended through Earth's thin atmosphere, flying over frozen oceans and ice-covered continents. The ship landed near the ruins of what had once been Sol. Hana stepped onto the ice wearing an environmental suit, looking at the broken buildings that poked up through the snow. This city had been home to millions. Now it was a tomb, but as she walked through the ruins, she noticed something. Heat. The ice was melting in places, forming small streams of water. The temperature was rising. She checked her instruments and found energy readings coming from deep underground. Taman, scan the entire planet, she ordered. Full spectrum analysis. What they discovered took everyone's breath away. Earth was not dead. The entire planet had been converted into a massive computational substrate. Under the ice, spreading across continents, lay quantum computers and dimensional processors, beyond anything the fleet had. The transcended humans had not left. They had merged with Earth itself, turning their homeworld into the platform for their digital existence. As if responding to being discovered, holographic projections began appearing around the expedition team, forms that might have once been human, now existing as pure patterns of light and thought. They spoke not in words, but directly into the minds of those present. Welcome home, children of Terra. You have done well. Hana fell to her knees, overwhelmed by the presence of something vast and ancient. Are you the transcended humans? Are you our ancestors? We are what humanity became. We have watched your awakening. We have seen your choices. You faced the test that we designed and you passed. Test? Hana asked. This was all a test? The fleet was never just a weapon. It was a choice. We left you with the power to destroy or protect, to conquer or nurture. The galaxy was not ready for our full technology. They still fight like children over toys. But you, our descendants, have shown that you remember what it means to be human. Not through your weapons, but through your choices. Science Officer Jinwoo stepped forward. What happens now? Do you return? Do you help us rebuild? We cannot return. We have evolved beyond physical form. But we offer you a choice, each of you individually. You may remain as you are, physical beings guiding the younger species toward enlightenment, or you may join us, transcend your flesh, and experience existence as we do. There is no wrong answer. Both paths have value. The offer hung in the air like a weight. Hana looked at her crew, seeing the same struggle on every face. The temptation to transcend, to let go of all physical limitations and pain, to become something more. Pilot Seojin spoke first. I want to go. I have seen enough of war and conflict. I want to know what lies beyond. Medical Officer Hyejin, who had stayed behind for this mission despite planning to join Sungho later, nodded. Me as well. I have done what I can for this galaxy. I am ready for the next stage. About half the humans present chose transcendence. They walked to the holographic forms and simply vanished. Their consciousness uploaded into the vast network that was Earth. Their bodies collapsed gently to the ice, empty shells that had carried them through time. Hana watched them go. The temptation pulled at her, but she looked up at the sky where thousands of species lived, struggled, grew, and died. Someone needed to guide them. Someone needed to prove that physical beings could still make good choices. I will stay, she said firmly. The galaxy needs examples, not distant gods. It needs people who struggle with moral choices and choose kindness anyway. I will stay and be that example. Lieutenant Taman stood beside her. As will I. Communications Officer Jiwon nodded. And I. One by one, the remaining humans made their choice. 75 chose to stay physical. They would be the last true-born humans in physical form, the bridge between the transcended ancestors and the younger species who still lived in flesh and blood. The holographic forms seemed to smile, if such beings could smile. Then we bless your choice. The fleet is yours. Earth is yours to protect. Guide the galaxy well, and perhaps in another 1,000,000 years the younger species will be ready to join us. The forms faded away. The humans were alone again on the frozen planet, but now they understood their purpose.